Is Andor the Deep Space Nine of Star Trek? Let's talk. Hey Trekkies, Christian Fox here with another video for you. Today, I want to talk about that other little sci-fi franchise that people seem to love, Star Wars. Oh, and full spoilers. Now let me just say this up front for everyone to hear. I love Star Wars. I don't love it as much as I love Trek, but I love Star Wars. I love the first 6 films. I grew up with them, and they really are some of my favorite films of all time. And I also really do enjoy the shows. So when Andor was announced, I was quite excited. But then I started watching it and was rubbed the wrong way and a little bored. The first 2 episodes were very slow and didn't feel like a lot was going on. And I didn't love the fact that Andor basically killed 2 people in the very first episode. And when I say kill, I mean murdered. And I get that they were corporate security and I get that they were harassing him. But I just felt like it escalated to murder way too quickly. And there were likely other ways that he could have solved that problem. And being a Trekkie, I was especially bothered because nobody in Star Trek ever murders anyone in cold blood. But then I finally forced myself to watch it. I was like, I'm going to watch Andor. I'm talking about it on the Big Sci-Fi podcast, which airs every Friday morning at 6 a.m. So please check that out. And yes, that is a plug for another show that I do. And I was like, I am going to watch Andor. I'm going to get through it, and I'm going to hopefully like it because I've been hearing really good things. So I sat down and watched episode 3, and that's where the series turned for me, and I was in. And it was one of those shows where I just kept watching it, and it was lingering in my thoughts. And I was driving to work one day a couple of weeks ago, and I'm on here, Ontario, which is where I drive to work, and I'm thinking about Andor, and then I'm like, oh my goodness gracious me. It is like Deep Space Nine. It's amazing. And no, I don't mean it's like Deep Space Nine in that it takes place on a space station where cool things happen. That is not what the show is about. But where it is like Deep Space Nine is in its exploration of good versus evil and the shades of gray that kind of go along with it. In my opinion, Star Wars has always been about good and evil and really hasn't explored the shades of gray in that concept. It's always been, if you're a good guy, i.e. if you're a rebel, then everything you do is good and there's no problems. And if you're a bad guy, i.e. the Empire, then basically everything you do is wrong. And granted, some of the other movies and some of the shows have tried to explore the morality of this, but I don't think it was quite on the same level of Deep Space Nine, and up until recently, not on the same level as it is in Andor. And the reason I bring up Deep Space Nine is because I think the exploration, as I say, of good and evil and the shades of gray around it is really strong. In the series, you have heroes who are, of course, they're good guys because they're Federation and they're fighting the evil Dominion, but it doesn't mean that everything they do is super great and doesn't mean that they don't have any blood on their shirt. Look at Captain Sisko, for example, who has done some, morally shady stuff, even murder, as I alluded to earlier. And then you have Kira, who is fighting the Cardassians who occupied her home planet, Bajor. And it's one of those things where it's like, yes, she was fighting for freedom and to save her people and fighting tyranny and oppression and all of that stuff. But she did some stuff that she wasn't proud of. And she even kind of alludes to that in various episodes. There's even an episode where a Cardassian comes back to haunt her because of the things that she did during the occupation. And she kind of feels bad about it, but realizes she really had no choice. And I think DS9 did such a beautiful job of saying, hey, even if you're a good guy fighting for a good cause, it doesn't mean you're going to get away scot-free. And as I said before, don't have any blood on your hands. Andor takes this idea and runs with it. I would say that the character that most represents this is Luthen. Luthen is a cool guy. I really like Luthen. When Luthen showed up and started talking to Andor and was like, oh, by the way, one of the rules is if you ever enter a room, you always have to have your exit plan. I'm like, I'm in. I love this character. But he was such a great sort of vessel for that idea that, hey, even if you are, like him, a rebel trying to fight the Empire, trying to fight for good and freedom and justice, it doesn't mean you're going to be necessarily good all the time and doesn't mean you're not going to have any blood on your hands. In one truly amazing scene, Luthen makes the argument that forcing the Empire to take extreme measures is a good thing, even though he knows innocent people will die. He says that by the Empire taking such extreme measures and limiting freedoms, it will force people to wake up and realize that the Empire is evil, something that Marva alludes to later in the series. Luthen himself later acknowledges this when asked by Lonnie, the Imperial officer who's passing information to the rebellion, what he sacrificed. And in response, Luthen says, hey, look, I sacrificed a lot. I've done a lot of horrible things, and I'm going to have to keep doing a lot of horrible things in order for the rebellion to succeed. And I'm not going to be happy about it. I'm not going to find any kind of happiness or inner peace, but I have to do it. And let me tell you, that monologue that he delivers is incredible. Then we have Mon Mothma, one of the greatest heroes in Star Wars. And we see that she is trying her best to do the right thing. She's trying not to sacrifice her morals, but she ends up having to make a deal with the devil in order to elude Empire suspicion. And at the very end of the series, we see that her daughter is being introduced to Davo's son, and it's very clear that a marriage is about to happen. And that, of course, is what Davo wanted, because at the beginning he was like, hey, I'll help you out, but you kind of have to let my son get introduced to your daughter because, well, they should probably get married. And she's like, I don't want to do that, but I have no choice. And we see it happening at the very end of the season. Then, of course, we have our boy Andor. And Andor is obviously a good guy, as we know him from Rogue One, but he does a bunch of questionable things throughout the series, starting with killing those corporate security guys. And again, yes, I know he was being harassed, but still, I feel like there must have been a better solution. And then we have him kill one of his own team members who is, yes, threatening to leave the rest of them and just take the money. But again, I still think he had a better option. But honestly, it's perfect for the theme because even though Andor is a good guy fighting the Empire, he still has blood on his hands. And it is so impactful when you realize that, hey, even the heroes can do horrible things, and doesn't necessarily make them not a hero, but doesn't make them as pure as what we might believe. Moving away from this whole shades of gray conversation, the series itself was just really well made. The characters were compelling. Luthen was the standout for me. I just loved every scene that he's in, and I just honestly can't wait to see more Luthen in season 2. And one of the things that made the characters so great in the series was the character arcs, and they felt realistic, and they felt like they made sense, but they all sort of concluded in a nice, satisfying way by the end of season 1, but done in such a way that we still have questions about where they're going in season 2, and that we're kind of left on the edge of our seat. And even the Imperial characters were compelling. And generally speaking, you're not supposed to like the Imperial characters, but Deidre was kind of cool. And I liked that she was just so good at her job and was able to cut through all the BS that her other officers were like, no, you can't do it. This is not your thing. You're not supposed to be doing this. And she's like, no, guys, this is actually a rebellion, okay? Like, this is actually coordinated. We need to deal with it. And even though, again, I don't want her to win because I'm rooting for the rebels, I'm kind of like, she's kind of cool. And a show that can take a bad guy and make them compelling and make them something that you could kind of root for in a weird kind of way is really, really cool. From a visual standpoint, the cinematography was gorgeous and just had beautiful shot after beautiful shot. And you combine that with the color grading, and you have another living, breathing world full of oppression and hope. And like DS9, there are moments of fun and moments where I just really want to get out of my chair and cheer. The biggest moment that I wanted to scream out of pure joy and cheer was the prison break. The prison break was so great. And I was just like, this is amazing. I love this show. I love Andor. As you can probably tell by now, I loved Andor. I thought it was amazing and highly recommend it. And definitely check this out if DS9 is your favorite Trek. And heck, even if you're not a Star Wars fan, check it out because I promise you won't regret it.